morning, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. A couple of you in this room might know that I am the youngest out of 6 siblings. But what nobody here knows is that I actually grew up with a little brother. His name was Mather, and he was a beautiful black lab. Mather was actually a gift from my oldest sister Mary to my dad for a faux pas that she made, so she gifted him with a puppy so he wouldn't get so mad. And this puppy was adorable. Mather had these big old black ears. He had paws that were 2 sizes too big for him, so he always used to trip over himself when he was walking as a puppy. And I loved him. I was the last kid in the house. I was just about to go into high school, and so none of my siblings were there with me anymore. It was just me, and now this dog, Mather. He was like my little brother, and there were so many good things that he did. My dad was a big hunter, and so he trained Mather to be a hunting dog. So Mather, you told him to sit, and he would sit. You tell him to stay, he wouldn't move. You point to a direction and say, fetch it up, and Mather would go to wherever you're pointing and go find whatever it is you're looking for. He even had such a good nose that if you gave him something to smell, and you said, fetch it up, he would go anywhere to go find that smell and bring it back to you or let you know where it's at. He would point to it because they have this innate ability to point to where, I guess, the duck would be. So he was a very, very well-trained black lab. He was so good that our family even created a song for him. And it went, Matey's a good dog, Matey's a good dog, Matey's a good dog, he's the best dog in the world. Yeah, he had a nickname, Matey. His full name is Mather Baumgartner. So Matey, he did have some flaws, one of which was his absolute love for water. So even if you're walking along and you see a tiny 1-foot puddle, he was gonna make sure he was everywhere in that water by the end of it. He would go straight to it, get everything he could out of the water, and come back. He was a huge water dog, loved it. And Mather was a great dog. I used to want to take him everywhere with me. A couple of trips that I remember most fondly were, I grew up playing soccer my entire life. I played club soccer, definitely in high school, and I used to have to make a trip from Gardnerville, Nevada, all the way to Reno for the best club team that you could find in Nevada, which was an hour away. And it was such a boring drive to me that one day I thought, well, gosh, this drive is really boring. What if I brought Mather? So Mather's like 1 year old, and I bring him up to my little 1991 Toyota Corolla, and I say, open the door, Mather, kennel up. And he would jump right in there, happy as a clam to be there, just happy to be there. He'd drive with me all the way to Reno, and I remember my first time bringing him up there, I drove up to practice, I went up the hill, left him in the car, and I was playing soccer, and I felt so bad because it wasn't hot outside or anything dangerous like that, but I just didn't like leaving the guy in the car. And so the first water break, I ran back down the hill, opened the car and said, come on. And he just came right up with me to the hill. Obviously, he couldn't play soccer with us, but he was right there on the sideline, and I said, Mather, sit, stay. And I walked away and I went and practiced. Now, what do you think he did for the next hour? He sat there and watched me practice, didn't run after any dogs, didn't go chase the balls, he just sat there, happy as a clam, and watched me. He was the best dog. Everyone always complimented how well-behaved he was, but that's really because of my dad and how much he trained him as a puppy. I'd love to take credit, but I definitely can't. Our second trip that I remember fondly is I had to go from where I lived all the way to San Francisco for a job interview, and it was about a 4-hour drive. Now, to give you a little backstory, why I was going and how Mather actually got his name, my grandmother, Constance, who I'm named after, she grew up as a child going to the city of San Francisco family camp called Camp Mather, and so she went every year as a kid growing up. Therefore, my dad went every year as a kid growing up. He has 4 other siblings. They all went. I've never missed a year, so I've been to this camp 29 years in a row. And in tradition, a lot of people in my family work at this camp during the summer, during college, and so I had to go to San Francisco to interview for this job. Excuse me. My dad loved Mather, our dog, so much that he named him after our most beloved place on earth in our family, which is Mather, Camp Mather. So anyways, I bring Mather up to my 1991 Toyota Corolla, open the door, and I say, kettle up. And me and Mather make the trip all the way to San Francisco. I interview, obviously I get the job, and you're pretty much grandfathered in at that point when you have so much time and tradition and that. And then we're driving back, right? And it's a pretty windy road through these mountains, and I think, oh, how can I make this more fun for Mather? And I was like, well, I know there's like a spot by the road, and Mather can get out. It's by a huge river. He can get some really good smells in. He can go to the bathroom. I don't want him to go to the bathroom in the car. And so I stop about an hour back in, and we pull up by the side. I open the door, and I look out, and I see that at that point, the river is actually really slow, and the water is pretty low, and I'm thinking, oh no, open the door, look at the river, look at Mather. He's not looking at me. Boom! He like straight to the water, jumps in, happy as a clam, and I'm like, oh no. I let him swim, get him back out of there. Of course, he shakes off right next to me because there's nowhere else to shake off. And the next 3 hours of the drive, the entire car just smells like a wet dog. So he had a great time. It was a very fond memory that I still have, and I'll never forget it. Last winter, Mather passed away. He was 2 months shy of 15. Now for us, animals and dogs, they're great. We see them as much as we can. They're a huge part of our lives. When we come home, they're happy to be there to greet us. When we go on trips, sometimes we take them with us to soccer practice or to road trips with us. But to them, we're their entire world. Can I get a show of hands for anybody who's had an animal growing up or has an animal now that they care for? Okay, keep your hands raised if that animal showed joy and love in your life. Exactly. Now, Mather was that exact thing for me. He taught me so many things in life. Number one, he showed me what unconditional love was like to receive and what it was like to give it. Secondly, he taught me that it's never a bad time to go for a walk. And lastly, he told me that every day there's something new to be excited about because every day is a great day. Mr. Toastmaster.